يا نسها نحن نجحنا وإلى المجد بعزم قد وصلنا وزرعنا جهدنا طول الليالي وأتى اليوم الذي فيه حصدنا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. أبناء الطلاب، بناتنا الطالبات، ممتحنين للشهادة السودانية، الأسر الكريمة، نرجو أن نوفق في أن نستمر في تقديم حصصنا لمادة اللغة الإنجليزية. فالطلاب الحاجة المطلوب منهم أنه الواحد يجهز الورقة والقلم لمتابعة الشرح. نكرر تجهيز ورقة وقلم لكتابة النقاط المهمة ومتابعة الشرح. Now I'm going to change my tongue. To change my tongue, that means I'm going to use another language. I'm going to use English. Of course, tongue here means language, لغة. Okay? When I say I'm going to change my tongue, أريد أن أغير لساني, that means I'm going to use another language. I'm going to use English instead of Arabic. So today we are going to talk about what we call writing compositions. Of course, the composition in the examination is 15 marks, 15 درجة. That's why it is very important for everybody, I mean for every candidate, for every student, to be careful about writing compositions. Today I'm going to help you, inshallah, with the ways of writing compositions, how to write compositions, so that you can get good marks in the composition writing, in the examination, of course. Let us begin by what we call the definition. In Arabic we say تعريف. The question is very simple. What is a composition? What is a composition? Of course, this is a very important question, because if you know the answer to this question, I'm sure you can succeed in writing a good composition. لو عرفت التعريف تستطيع أن تكتب إنشاء جيدة، وحقيقة عشان كده لازم نبدأ بالتعريف. The definition says a composition, yes, I hope you are going to follow me, yes, from the poster, is a piece of writing, قطعة لغوية, piece, قطعة, writing, which is, yes, organized, منظمة, and connected. This is very important. You see, composition, let me repeat this again. Composition is a piece of writing, قطعة لغوية, which is organized, منظمة, and connected. Connected, مترابطة الأجزاء. We will come and talk about this in detail, of course. It has a number of paragraphs. It here refers to the composition. It has a number, عدد, a number of paragraphs, عدد من الفقرات, of course. You can have something like, let me say, 3 or 4 paragraphs in your composition. 3 أو 4 فقرات في composition. Here, points to be remembered. When you come to write a composition, you have to remember the following points. يجب عليك أن تتذكر هذه النقاط. We will discuss them together. I will read the point, yes, النقطة, we explain it, and I hope you are going to follow me, yes, again with your pen and then your sheet of paper. You write whatever you want to write, of course. Again, I'm going to use as simple English as possible so that you can understand. I'm going to use Arabic words if it is possible. I'm going to repeat myself. 3 things, 3 حاجات. 1, I'm going to use as simple English as possible. I'm going to repeat myself. And then I'm going to use some Arabic words if it is possible. لو بالإمكان ذلك. The first point says, we begin a paragraph by leaving a space of 1 inch from the left margin. This is very important, see? You remember, said that the composition has a number of paragraphs. These paragraphs, هذه الفقرات, yes, must be started, يجب أن تبدأ by leaving a space. Suppose, let me go to the blackboard, see? Here, suppose this is the title of my composition. Of course, I will write the title here, العنوان, full stop at the end of the title, and then I'm going to underline the title. أضع تحت العنوان. When I come to start, let me say, the paragraph, I'm going to do what? I'm going to leave a space of 1 inch, مسافة بتاعت بوصة. Yes, this is my left margin, and of course, this is the right margin. هذا هو الهامش الأيمن, and this is the left margin, you see? So I leave a space of 1 inch, مسافة بوصة, from, let me say, the margin, and then I will write my paragraph like this, of course. You see? Suppose this is the end of my first paragraph. I want to write a second paragraph. Again, I'm going to leave a space of 1 inch from the left margin, and I will write my paragraph like this, of course. You see? This is my paragraph. Suppose this is the end of my paragraph. I'm going to put a full stop at the end of the paragraph. I want to write a third paragraph. Again, I will leave a space of 1 inch from the left margin, and then I will write my paragraph like this, you see. Suppose this is the end of my paragraph. We have the last paragraph, the fourth paragraph. Again, I'm going to leave a space of 1 inch from the left margin, and then I'm going to write my paragraph like this, my paragraph like this. This is the end of my paragraph. Of course, you see that my writing is very organized. Why? Because the writing is confined, محصورة, between the left margin and the right margin. This is number one. Number two, the beginnings, بدايات, the beginnings of the paragraphs are below each other. This is what we call organization, تنظيم. You will be given marks for that. سوف تعطى درجات على ذلك. تنظيم، ربط النقاط مع بعض. This is very important. The good presentation. الكتابة الصحيحة، تقديم بالصورة الصحيحة. You must be very careful about this. Now we move to the point number two. The point number two says we can use as simple English as possible when we write. Some of the students think that they must use complicated English. إنجليزي معقد. لا. And I will say to you, use as simple English as possible. إنجليزي مبسط بقدر ما تستطيع إلى ذلك سبيلا. Don't think that you will be given good marks if you use complicated English. If you use complicated English, إنجليزي معقد, you will make mistakes and you will be penalized for that. Try to use as simple English as possible. إنجليزي مبسط سهل الممتنع. Yes, as possible when you write your composition. Then the point number three says our handwriting خط اليد خط كتابتنا should be يجب أن تكون yes clean نظيفة and readable مقروء. Of course our handwriting should be clean نظيف and readable. Of course if our handwriting is not clean, yes, if it is not readable, of course the marker المصحح is not going to understand anything from your writing. So make sure that your handwriting الخط بتاعك يكون مقروء. And if you want to make sure that your handwriting is readable, make sure that you join the letters of the word حروف الكلمة الواحدة, and then you make a space between a word and another. تترك مسافة أو فسحة بين الكلمة وأختها. Make sure that you join the letters of the word. This is number one. And then you make a space between a word and another. مسافة بين الكلمة وأختها. This is going to make your handwriting very readable. Clean. If you want to cancel a word, yes, يعني suppose I have written this word, read, and I discover that this read is wrong, you see, and I want to cancel it. What shall I do in this case? I'm going to put it between two brackets like this, and then I will, yes, cross it like this. This is quite enough. So that my writing will not be, you know, dirty. This is the point number three. Point number four, yes, we must avoid يتجنب the grammar and the spelling mistakes. This is very important. When you write, you must make sure that your composition, الإنشاء بتاعتك, is free from, in Arabic we say خالية من, yes, the grammar and spelling mistakes. In Arabic we say الأخطاء الإملائية والنحوية. Grammar and spelling mistakes. This is very important. Let me repeat this point again. We must avoid, علينا أن نتجنب, the grammar and the spelling mistakes in our composition. And then we have the last point. The last point is very important. It is the last but not the least. Yes, it says our writing must have punctuation marks. Punctuation marks. Punctuation, yes, ترقيم. Marks, علامات الترقيم. Punctuation marks, علامات الترقيم. By the punctuation marks, of course, we mean, yes, the question mark, the exclamation mark, the capital letter when we write, you see. And then we have the brackets, الأغواس, the dots, the comma, the semicolon, the full stop. Of course, it's very important, you see. Make sure that your handwriting is well punctuated. Well punctuated. Because the punctuation will make your writing understandable and clear, you see. So the last point, let me read it again, because it's very important. Our writing, كتابتنا للإنشاء, must have punctuation marks. يجب أن تحتوي على علامات الترقيم. By the punctuation marks, علامات الترقيم, we mean the question mark, the full stop, yes, the exclamation mark, علامة التعجب, the capital letters when we begin a letter, begin a sentence, or when we write a name of a person, a name of a town, a name of a country, Yes, here we have what we call the brackets, الأقواس, and then the dots, the comma, if we have a list of things, and then what we call semicolon. Yes, it's very important. Composition parts. In Arabic we say أجزاء الإنشاء. Composition parts. Technically speaking, من ناحية فنية, a composition has got, let me say, 3 parts. يعني when نتكلم بصورة فنية, the composition is divided into 3 parts, 3 أجزاء. Let me repeat this again. When we talk technically من ناحية فنية, we can say that composition has 3 parts. We are going to discuss the 3 parts of the composition one by one, so that you can follow what we mean by this. The first part of the composition is called the introduction. Introduction, I-N-T-R-O, I hope it's clear. Yes, I-N-T-R-O-D-U-C-T-I-O, introduction. مقدمة, introduction. مقدمة. If I want to write the composition, I must begin by the introduction. مقدمة. Yeah, here we have the introduction. It is only one paragraph, فقرة واحدة. Yes, very short in length. Yeah, the introduction, مقدمة, is only one paragraph, فقرة واحدة. It is very short in length. يعني قصيرة جدا في طولة. Yes, it can be something like 4 lines. I usually advise my students to write something like 4 lines in the introduction, في المقدمة. This introduction, yes, gives the general idea of the composition, الفكرة العامة. What is this composition about? Yes. So the introduction, 1 paragraph, فقرة واحدة. Yes, it is very short, قصيرة. It can be something like 4 lines, 4 أسطر. Okay. It gives, تعطي the general idea, الفكرة العامة of the composition. For example, they asked me to write about the education in Sudan, تعليم في السودان. I'm going to write an introduction, مقدمة. This introduction is going to be very short, قصيرة. It's going to be only 1 paragraph. I'm going to give general idea, فكرة عامة about the composition, so that the writer, the reader can understand what I want to talk about. Then we go to the second part of the composition, which is called the composition body. In Arabic we say لب الموضوع. Yeah, this composition body, yes, has more than 1 paragraph. يحتوي على أكثر من فقرة. It contains, يحتوي على detailed مفصلة, detailed information about the topic اللي هو موضوع. Of course, here I'm going to give detailed information, معلومات مفصلة. That's why the composition body is going to be, let me say, more than 1 paragraph. It could be about 2 paragraphs. Yes, you can write 2 paragraphs in the composition body, as we will come and see the example that we have here. Yes, let me repeat this again. We say that the second part of the composition is called composition body. The composition body has more than 1 paragraph. Yes, it contains detailed, معلومات مفصلة, information about the topic. And then we come to the last part of the composition, which is called the conclusion. In Arabic we say الخاتمة, the conclusion. It is the last part of the composition, الجزء الأخير من الإنشاء. It is only 1 paragraph, فقرة واحدة, in length, في الطول. Yes. It contains, تحتوي على the last piece of information about the topic. آخر معلومة عن الموضوع الذي نتناوله. This is number 1. It may contain also the writer's opinion about the topic. رأي الشخص الذي يكتب في الموضوع. Or solutions, حلول, to the problems given in the composition body. Let me explain this again. I'm saying that the conclusion is the last part of the composition. It is going to be only 1 paragraph in length. We have 3 options, 3 خيارات. Either to write the last piece of information about the topic, آخر معلومة تتعلق بالموضوع الذي نتناوله. This is the first option, خيار أول. Or we can write our opinion about the topic, رأينا في ذلك الموضوع. Or the last option, الخيار الأخير, the solutions, الحلول. يعني suppose we have written about, let me say, the problems of education in Sudan. We are going to suggest some solutions. نريد أن نقترح بعض الحلول to these problems which we have just written in the composition body. Here we can write these solutions, هذه الحلول, in what we call the conclusion. So I have just finished talking about what we call the composition body, the composition parts. Number 1, the introduction, مقدمة. Number 2, the composition body. Number 3, the conclusion, الخاتمة. Of course, we have different types of composition. Of course, here you have to be very careful, you see. We have different types of composition, and you must know them very well, see. So we are going to discuss these types of composition one by one. The first point say, a composition can be, يمكن الإنشاء أن تكون, number 1, descriptive. In Arabic we say وصفي. Descriptive, adjective from describe. Describe, يصف. In the descriptive composition, we write, yes, to describe a certain thing. إننا نكتب لكي نناقش شيئا مهما واحدا. We write in the present tenses, of course, because here we are talking about facts. I have just told you about the problems of education in Sudan, or the education in Sudan. When you come to write such kind of composition, we are going to discuss the types of education that we have in Sudan, the problems of education in Sudan, and the solutions الحلول to those problems. Yes? Here, in this case, I'm going to say this is a descriptive composition, موضوع وصفي. In this case, I'm going to use the present tenses, in particular بالتحديد the present simple tense. Or suppose I want to write about Sudan as an agricultural country, Sudan كدولة زراعية. In this case, this is a composition, this is a descriptive composition. I'm going to use the present tenses because I'm going to describe, let me say, facts, حقائق. Then the second, let me say, type of composition is called argumentative. Yes, argumentative, حوار, نقاش. Argue, يناقش, يحاور. Argumentative, adjective, حواري, نقاش. We write, yes, in the argumentative composition, we write to discuss a topic. Yes, ناقش موضوع معين. Like, yes, girls' education is necessary. Discuss. Yeah, he will say to us, girls' education, تعليم البنات is necessary, ضروري. Discuss, ناقش هذا الأمر. We write, of course, the descriptive composition, that's what I mean, the argumentative composition, in present tenses. Because here we are going to talk about facts again. So the second type of composition, I'm going to repeat myself again, this is called argumentative composition. In the argumentative composition, we are going to discuss, yes, a certain topic, like what we call girls' education is necessary. Here we are going to discuss this topic, هذا الموضوع. And then here, of course, we write in the present tenses, and mainly the present simple tense. Then we move to the third type of composition. I hope it is clear for everybody. It is called narrative or narrative. Both pronunciations are correct. Narrative. Stories, قصص. Of course, story. You write a story. We write the events أحداث of a story. أحداث قصة. Yes? We write in the past tenses. We write the narrative or the story in the past tenses unless there is direct speech within the composition. لو في كلام مباشر within our composition في داخل الموضوع الإنشاء. Of course, we use the present tense or any other tense. Yes, and this is what we call direct speech, كلام مباشر. For example, you say, when we reached, yes, the garden, yes, the keeper, the garden keeper said to us, don't enter this garden because you do not have any permission from the owner of the garden. We are going to write the words of the garden keeper, al-Ghafir, between two inverted commas, yes, and this is going to be in the present. Of course, this is direct speech. The last part of composition is called letters. We say رسائل. Yes, we write them نكتبهم in present or past tenses accordingly على حسب الرسالة. Yes, of course, we shall discuss سوف نناقش إن شاء الله writing letters in one of our following lessons إن شاء الله. Here, before we go to the example that we have here, I just want you to remember that there are 4 types of composition. The first type of composition, as I have just mentioned, yes, you remember it? Yeah, the first type of composition, yes, it's called descriptive composition. It's number 1. Yes, the first type of composition. This is descriptive composition. And then we have what we call, let me go back to the paper, very sorry, so that you can follow them with me. Yes? Yeah? Say we have 4 types of composition. The first one, this is what we call, let me say, descriptive composition, so that you can follow it with me from the poster, descriptive composition. And in the descriptive composition, we describe, yes, a certain topic. We write this kind of composition in present tenses. And then the second kind of composition is argumentative, حوار. Here we write to discuss a topic. And we have given example like this. Yes, girls' education is necessary. Discuss. Of course, we are going to use the present tenses for writing such kind of composition. Then we have the third type of composition, and this is what we call narrative or stories. Of course, we write this type of composition, the narrative or the story, in the past tenses. When we say past, we mean the past tenses, the past simple, the past continuous, the past perfect, but mainly the past simple, of course. Unless ما لم يكون, unless there is direct speech within the composition. And then the last type of composition is letters, رسائل. Yes, we write the letters in the present or the past tenses accordingly, على حسب ما يقتضي الأمر. Of course, in one of our coming lessons, inshallah, we will come and talk about writing letters. Here, I have given an example, yes, so that you will see how we discuss and how we write the composition. In the examination, they ask you to write a composition, minimum 120 words, maximum 180 words. أدنى حد 120 كلمة، أقصى حد 180 كلمة. Yes? يعني don't write less than 120 words and don't write more than 180 words. So the instruction, إرشاد. Yes, the instruction says write a composition of about 120, 180 words on water. Water. The topic that we have here is water. Of course, you remember this type of composition. Yes, you remember it? I'm sure you will remember. Yeah, this is, of course, a descriptive composition. وصفي. Use the following. استخدم النقاط الجاية أو الآتية. Yes, the following to write your composition. لكتابة الموضوع. Here we read the points so that we'll be, let me say, aware of our writing. See? Water, yes, necessary for life. Liquid, the water can be liquid, سائل. Solid, solid. Vapor, vapor, in Arabic we say بخار. The water can be a liquid, سائل. It can be solid, yes, solid, or it can be vapor, بخار. Found in, توجد, yes, rivers, seas, etc. Of course, this is going to be your introduction, مقدمة. I'm not going to write it on the board, but I'm going to discuss it with you so that you will have, let me say, your piece of paper, and then you go and write it by yourself later on. So here we write, of course, the title on the top of the page, like this. And then we begin the first paragraph. This is going to be the introduction, مقدمة. We say, water, yes, is necessary for life. Yes, let me repeat this again. Water is necessary for life. That means all people, animals, and plants cannot live without it. Water can be in the form of في شكل liquid, solid, or vapor. Vapor. It is found in rivers, seas, oceans, and so on. You see, this is the introduction. Let me repeat it again. Of course, you will go and write it by yourself. Because the most important thing in the composition is to practice writing by yourself. ممارسة الكتابة بنفسك. You write. اكتب. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. ما تخاف من الخطأ. Write the first time, you will make mistakes. Of course, your teacher will show you the mistakes that you have made. You are going to make corrections, تصويب for those mistakes. You are going to write for the second time, for the second time, for the third time, until you become a good writer. You have to try to write by yourself. Okay? Don't depend on memorizing the compositions. ما تعتمد على حفظ الموضوعات. Write by yourself. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. ما تخاف من الأخطاء. Write the first time. Let me repeat this again. The second time, the third time. Gradually, تدريجيا, your mistakes, أخطائك will disappear. هتختفي. And then you will become a good composition writer. So here I'm going to repeat this again. I'm saying that this is what we call the introduction, مقدمة. We say water is very simple. Water is necessary for life. That means all people, animals, plants cannot live without water. Water can be in the form of liquid, solid, and vapor. It is found to get in rivers, seas, lakes, oceans, and so on. This is what we call the introduction. Now we go to the body بالموضوع. The advantages, المحاسن، فوائد. All living creatures need it. تحتاج للماء. Use in industry. Yes, use in industry الصناعة. Yes, generate electric power لتوليد طاقة كهربائية. Here we will begin our paragraph. We say, for example, water has a number of advantages on our life. For example, all living creatures مخلوقات, all living creatures كل المخلوقات الحية need water to survive or to live لكي تعيش. Also, we use water in industry صناعة to cool big engines لتبريد الماكينات. Besides, we use water to generate electric power لتوليد الطاقة الكهربائية المائية. This is what we call hydroelectric power, of course. Let me repeat this paragraph again. I'm saying that water, this is the body of the composition. We say water has a number of advantages on our life في حياتنا. Yes. Firstly, أولا, all living creatures need water in order to survive, in order to live. Also, we use it in industries to cool big engines لتبريد الماكينات. Besides, we use water to generate electric power, and this is what we call hydroelectric power, الطاقة الكهربائية المائية. Again, we can continue our paragraph. Water, yes, is used in irrigating plants. This is what we call agriculture, in irrigating plants. Irrigate, يروي, to water, irrigating plants, ليري النباتات. Water can be used in irrigating plants. Yes, again, water can be used to transport goods and people from one place to another. Yes, so here your paragraph is going to be like this. Let me repeat it again so that you will be sure of what we say. We say that all water has a number of advantages in our life. All living creatures need water to live. Also, we use it in industry to cool big engines. Besides, it generates electric power and irrigate the growing plants. Above all, أهم من كده, it is used to transport goods and people from one place to another. This is the first, let me say, paragraph in the composition body. Yes, the second paragraph in the composition body is about the disadvantages. Then we say مساوي. Yes, water has some disadvantages. Causes problems, سبب مشاكل. Still water, المياه الراكدة. Of course, the still water causes diseases, أمراض, like malaria. Yes. We have flood. In Arabic we say فيضانات. The flood leads to the death. Yes, موت. Destroy farms, تدمير مزارع, schools, مدارس, and houses. Of course, you will try this paragraph by yourself. And then you come to the conclusion. The conclusion, yes, you will say, finally, we must avoid water pollution. تجنب تلوث المياه. Because water pollution causes a lot of, let me say, health problems بشكل صحية. And then we must be careful not to use water wastefully. Of course, with this, you come to the conclusion of your composition. And I hope you will, let me say, go and practice writing composition so that you can become a good composition writer. Thank you very much for attending this lesson. And I hope to continue with you explaining the English language. أشكركم جزيلا على هذا الحضور، ونتمنى من الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يوفقنا في أداء هذه المهمة، ونشكر إخواننا في قناة طيبة لمساعدتنا لتقديم هذا العمل لكم ونسأل الله التوفيق لكم جميعا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
غردي يا نفسها نحن نجحنا، وإلى المجد بعزم قد وصلنا، وزرعنا جهدنا طول الليالي، وأتى اليوم الذي فيه حصدنا. غردي يا نفسها نحن نجحنا، وإلى المجد بعزم قد وصلنا، وزرعنا جهدنا طول الليالي، وأتى اليوم الذي فيه حصدنا. عانق العلياء يا نفس بفخر، سطري شعرا سل الأنجم عنا، ما لهونا يوم أن جاءت خطوب بل صمد.